Hey guys, this is Vid, and today we're going to be playing Infect in Modern. This is my Modern deck of choice. Been working on it for a long time. I'm also working on a large statistical analysis of the deck. I've been recording all of my games, every card that's in my opening hand, and when it's played, and I've been getting statistics for it that I will release in the future. But I've already played and logged about 100 games, and with those statistics I've made some adjustments to the deck upon learning how certain cards were interacting in certain matchups. And here's the list I'm kind of settled on right now as of this iteration. I'm going to do about another 100 to 200 test games and then probably make some further changes to the deck. You'll notice I'm not doing the Mishra's Bauble list that a lot of people are running. I'm running a few other card choices that are debatable. The reasoning behind, I'll just go over some of them. This Apostle's Blessing is in here for mana considerations. It's a card we can cast with our Inkmoth Nexus. It also has a lot of flexibility as a way to get through blockers and a way to protect our creatures. I cut a Blossoming Defense because in my statistical analysis it was actually the lowest performing card in the deck overall, which was interesting because I expected it to be Dried Arbor. Running 2 Dismembers because Dismember actually is one of our best cards in a lot of matchups, a lot of more popular matchups, especially in these competitive leagues where there's a lot of human decks. Much more humans than any other archetype is represented. I'll go ahead and go through a few other things. We have Twisted Image for Arc-like Phoenix decks to kill a Thing in the Ice, and also it's a good way to kill Spell Skites, Izzet Static Casters, and Noble Hierarchs. We have Dispel for a lot of different matchups. Ravenous Trap is the graveyard hate of choice. It has performed a lot better in the recent history as opposed to Grafdigger's Cage, which was what I was running beforehand. We have 2 Nissa Voice of Zendikars, which are amazing in the control matchup and against the Liliana decks. She's a good foil to that. A lot of people aren't equipped to deal with Planeswalkers, which is why we're running 2. Wild Defiance is a nice tool against Lightning Bolt decks. Shaper Sanctuary is a tool that might get cut in the future, but for now I do like it in grindier matchups. The Sinner's Deliverance is a way to kill Chalice of the Void. And then Nature's Claims as a good all-purpose kill enchantments and artifacts. Other than that, the deck is pretty straightforward, running 9 fetches, 2 basics, 3 become immense. And then a lot of the rest of the deck is just pretty standard. So we're going to go ahead and get into the matches now. We are playing using the London Mulligan rule, which is currently in effect. We will take the play because we're not playing Manaless Dredge. Here's an interesting hand. It does have somewhat of a game plan. We can play our Blighted Agent on turn 2 and then maybe become immense on turn 4. It is an okay hand, but it is not amazing. Dried Arbor is not really what we want to see in our opener, and the Dismember is only good against some decks and it's completely dead against others. So I think we're going to mulligan since we don't know what we're up against. If I knew we were up against like humans, I probably would keep this hand. This hand is a lot more flexible. We have 2 Infect creatures, we have good mana, and we have protection and pump. Now we have to decide what card we want to put back. We want Glistener Elf and Inkmoth Nexus. We want at least 1 Blossoming Defense. We might not need 2. I think I'd rather have all 3 of our lands as opposed to the second Blossoming Defense. So we'll go with that. Now we are on the play, and since we have a backup Inkmoth Nexus, I think we're just going to go ahead and roll out the Glistener Elf. Turn 1 Glistener Elf is good against a lot of decks, and it is bad to hold back our Glistener Elf if we're up against like a Thoughtseize deck. So I'd rather just run it out, and if it eats removal, we can fall back on this Inkmoth Nexus game plan. We'll go ahead and start by fetching out a basic, just in case there's any weird shenanigans we need to be worried about. Opponent is on Tron, so thankfully we got to play that Glistener Elf turn 1. We'll go ahead and drop our Misty. We don't need to go on Inkmoth. We're going to try to kill our opponent with this Glistener Elf. Well, maybe not, actually. Yeah, okay. Walking Bloodstone 2 is what we're most worried about, but he's likely just to crack the map. We'll go ahead and just Groundswell. Opponent isn't happy. ahead and get in with our Glistener Elf, and it's looking good. We are going to need probably at least 2 more attacks to kill unless we top deck a really good pump spell. Looks like opponent does not have a Walking Ballista, and they're just going to go for the turn 3 Tron. And we are likely just going to go for the kill. But we will wait to cast our Blossoming Defense until the last moment. This is one of those instances where you just kind of have to go for it. If our opponent does have some kind of interaction, that he's going to have to forego using his Expedition map, so that might put him off Tron and give us a chance to kill him with Inkmoth Nexus. So it is the right play to try to just go for it. And he did not have anything, which is good. Game 2. I've been experimenting a lot with sideboarding in this, and I don't have a definite sideboard for any matchup. But against Tron, we do have some options. We do take out Dismembers, because they're not very good. Apostle's Blessing is also not very good. Distortion Strike isn't the best, but it might be our best card in the slot. We'll bring in our Artifact Destruction is a good way to handle Walking Ballistas and some of their early game plays. I also like bringing in a Viridian Corruptor, but I prefer bringing it in on the play because on the draw it is just a little slow. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to swap one of these Blossoming Defenses for a Spellskite. It's a really good way to handle Walking Ballista, which is really the card that matters the most in this matchup. We don't care about very many cards, but Walking Ballista is something that can make our life a lot more difficult. This hand is really threat heavy, which is not usually what we want against Tron, but it's pretty serviceable, especially in a game 2 where our opponent brings in more interaction, so we have more redundant threats. And I think we'll go ahead and keep it. This does lose to some of their better hands, but I think it's sufficient enough to just go for it with. The Relic is actually really annoying because it is going to make it a lot harder to cast this Become Immense. So we're actually not going to lead on our fetches. I would normally lead on my fetch to start trying to feel this Become Immense. Instead we're going to wait and see if we can get our opponent to crack the Relic before we start feeling the graveyard. Opponent has their second Tron land and a Sphere. We're likely just going to keep running out threats. Spellskite is an interesting option. And I think I am going to go ahead and play the Spellskite. It's a good answer to Ballista if they just slam a huge Ballista next turn. So we'll just go ahead and get that out now. Hopefully our opponent cracks their Relic and we can start trying to fuel the graveyard. Opponent is going to Nature's Claim our Spellskite. Alright, nothing we can do about that. Interesting that opponent chose to bring in Nature's Claim. It does kill our Inkmoth Nexus, and I guess our Spellskites too. Opponent does not have Tron. Still holding up their Relic. They are tapping out though, and they do have a Ballista. Alright. We have several options here. We can play our Blighted Agent, hold up a mana. We can just animate this Inkmoth and swing in for 1. Or Might it and swing in for 5. I wish that relic is actually really detrimental. If we crack our Windswept Teeth, animate Inkmoth Nexus, Might of Volcrocia, that puts 3 cards in our graveyard. Not quite enough to become immense next turn. So I think what we do is we just play our second Inkmoth. We Might of Volcrocia and then hope for the best. If our opponent just drops a Tron land and a huge Ballista, there's not much we can do about it. But this opens up a lot of top decks we can get to win with. Ghost Quarter is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Opponent finally cracks Relic, so we can start trying to fuel this Become Immense now. He does have a Ghost Quarter, just something to be wary of. Mutagenic Growth. So I think we just animate one ink moth, and then we play our Blighted Agent. Hopefully this can eat the Ghost Quarter and still leave us with enough opponent cracks the sphere. Are they gonna Nature's Claim again, perhaps? Alright. Okay, so we'll go ahead and play our Blighted Agent now. We can't try to win with the Ink Moth at the moment because of the Ghost Quarter. And we'll just shock a Breeding Pool in. Stay high on basics to fetch out when he kills our lands. And now our opponent is also at the point where we can kill them with any one of our creatures that connect. So opponent is going to have to do something pretty severe this turn. He has Tron. So he could play a ginormous Walking Ballista. That's really his best play here. If it's anything else though, we can pull out of it. Ugin is not game ending. So he's just gonna X -2. She's just gonna hope that we can't kill him with Ink Moth, I guess. Opponent showing us his best, and he's just gonna concede. He's not even gonna make us do it. What a nice guy. That would have been really, really rude if we didn't actually have the kill and he just conceded. Oh my goodness. Alright, moving into the next match. We have a pretty much unkeepable hand. We have no colored mana, which is something we really need. So we're definitely going to mulligan. Let's go ahead and mull. This hand is also pretty rough. We have no Infect creature. We have a Noble, which is nice, and we have a Mineable Corrosion, which is nice, but we do need an Infect creature. So I think we have to go to 5. If one of these lands, this wasn't a Dryad Arbor and is maybe instead another pump spell, I might just keep it and hope to draw an Infect creature, but I don't think it's good enough to try to keep a hand on that hope. So we'll go to 5. And I don't want to go to 4. And we do have enough support pieces that this can become a good hand. So we'll toss back the Become Immense. Second card to toss back is a little trickier. I think we toss back the Distortion Strike. Rancor and Distortion Strike do similar things. Rancor's better, I think, in more matchups. Although Distortion Strike probably is better than this one. Now we just need to try to draw that. There's a question of if we play it right now. So there is a question of if we do that, but the only card that can really kill our Glistener Elf is a Ballista. And we can't really stop a Ballista anyway. So we're just gonna hope they don't have a ballista. And if they do, we lose. We just can't afford to play around ballista. I do wish we had the distortion strike instead of the rancor, but there wasn't much way of us to know what was gonna come from that. I do like this Pendle Haven. It gives us a little bit more flexibility on this turn. Well, no, it actually works really poorly with rancor. Let's go ahead, play our land, put our rancor on, see how our opponent blocks. They probably don't block at all. If they do block, we can groundswell. If not, we can at least hold up. Blossoming Defense. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get this out. Let's fetch out. They do run Ghost Quarters, I think. Maybe they don't. Let's just get a forest. We'll kill his Fault Scourge and get a lot of trample damage in. And this sets up a potential kill next turn, depending on what happens. We just have to really hope our opponent doesn't have a ballista. That's really all the game's about now. Okay. Midnight on defense. If we attack, we can... He has to double block. No, he can block with one and then put a counter, but then he loses the thing. But he's left at one poison. Every attack after that gets significantly harder, though. But it's not like we have a lot of other options. 5. We could do 4. He could block. Block, counter. Mine dies. His dies, and he takes 3, goes to 9. He has a 2/2 Steel Overseer. So I think we don't attack. And we just hope to draw either a Blighted Agent or Become Immense before we die. That's looking like our best line at the moment. It's unfortunate this Blossoming Defense isn't a groundswell. We could have had just enough damage. We also would have had enough damage if we Pendle Haven last turn and then put our rancor on. But if we do that, our opponent might have blocked differently or done some other things differently. And it might not have rolled out this way, so it's hard to say if that was the right decision or not. They're definitely both interesting decisions. Opponent, does he have the Infect kill? I don't think he does. But he has that in 2 swings, so we have to draw something this turn. And we draw an Apostle's Blessing, which is pretty good. That's exactly what we need. And this is an instance where Apostle's Blessing is a lot better than a lot of other cards, because now we can just give him protection from artifacts. And we have the kill. Apostle's Blessing really coming in. I believe a Become Immense would have also done the trick. Or Distortion Strike, of course. Yeah. Alright, good game. Let's go to the next game. So, against Affinity, we want Spell Skites. We want all of our artifact destruction. That's mostly it. The Twisted Image is decent for some things in this matchup. We know our opponent is playing things like Cranial Plating, so we can use it to kind of fog and draw a card, which is kind of cool. But aside from that, I guess he does run Ornithopter too. Maybe Twisted Image is good enough. Seeing that he does run Ornithopter, he's probably going to bring in... He might bring in his own Nature's Claims, probably bring in Dismember. I don't think we bring in anything else. And then as far as taking out, we take out Spell Pierce. It's pretty not great in this matchup. Dismember's pretty decent. It might not be the best thing in this matchup, but it is something. I think we can maybe cut one because our Artifact Destruction is pretty much better in general. It does get around things like Welding Jar. So we'll keep one in. Aside from that, we're going to cut Glistener Elf because it is a lot harder to get it through. We're going to cut a Blossoming Defense. For the same reasons of it being hard to get through, we'll go ahead and cut a Become Immense. We cut Dried Arbor because it's just a little too slow in this matchup. And then we'll just take off a single copy of Mutagenic Growth. It is a really good card in this matchup. Well, we hit submit deck, but the opponent is the button is staying grayed out. So I don't know if it's actually accepting our changes. It does not look like the system registered our sideboard. So we're going to be playing with our game 1 configuration, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Certainly not ideal. I think we have to mulligan this hand. Inkmoth Nexus isn't as reliable of a threat in this matchup since they have their own Inkmoth Nexus. But we do have a Blighted Agent, so we will go ahead and try this hand. We have a potential turn 3 kill. The problem is if anything we put back takes away that potential. But the card I think we take out is... This is really hard because if we take out Mutagenic Growth, it does make our Blight Agent a lot more vulnerable on the turn we play it. But the Might gives us basically a guaranteed kill because we can double Might with a Noble. So I think we'll take the guaranteed kill since we're not sideboarded right now, so we don't have any of our good reactive tools. So I think we're just going to try to be as proactive as we can be and hope for the best. Go ahead and shock, play this Noble. And we actually will have protection for this turn 3 kill, which is pretty great. If our opponent doesn't have a turn 3 kill of their own. Oh, Modern. Go ahead, grab a Forest. We'll use the Noble to play it. That way if they kill our Noble, we can still hold up mana. And we have a protected turn 3 kill here, which is pretty good. It is unfortunate we didn't get any of our good sideboard cards, but to be fair, I think all of these cards we have were cards we did not side out. 3 or more artifacts. So we'll go ahead and use our protection spell now. Give it protection from whites. And now we just hope for the best. If he has a second removal spell, we're in a lot of trouble. But it's all we can really do. Opponent can hit us for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not lethal, but we do have lethal. And that is the power of just having a good proactive game plan. Even when Magic Online messes up, you still can just win a game really quick. Looks like he is going to pump up his guy. He's going to... Is he going all in? 3, 4... Yeah, he's just going, not for the kill, but he's going to try to get the kill, I guess, next turn. Very bold, but I guess that's just where he was at. So we main phase a Might, we main phase a Might, and then we swing in for 10. So none of the cards we actually had were sideboard cards. Of course, if we had sideboard, maybe our first hand would have been better, but our second hand was perfectly acceptable. And we're going to go ahead and go into the next round. Looks like opponent wins the die roll, they get to go first. This hand isn't amazing, but it's almost a turn 2 kill if we draw another Might or a Groundswell. So I think since we don't know what we're up against, I'm okay keeping this really, really proactive. It's almost a turn 2 kill and pretty likely to be a turn 3 kill. Opponent is probably, oh, that's same deck. It's always not as fun when that happens. But we will happily drop this Glistener Elf. This does make it significantly harder to go for the kill if he plays a blocker, which he probably will. If we're lucky, maybe he just... Okay, he plays a Cranial Plating. So if he plays a Ballista and just tries to kill our Glistener Elf, we can get him with the Mutagenic. But no, he's just going to drop a Cranial Plating. Is he going to swing? He is going to swing. So we're going to be able to get in a good chunk of damage here. Not a kill, unfortunately. But we can drop our Ink Moth. And we can get in for 5. And then hopefully this makes it so our opponent can't just go all in on us, because we threatened to kill them potentially. Galvanic Blast for 4. We can still potentially kill our opponent with this Ink Moth. But not next turn. We could get in for 1. Or we can play our Blighted Agent. I think the Blighted Agent is our better play. I'm going to go ahead and use a fetch. Run out this Blighted Agent. And hope for the best. Hopefully we can just draw any pump spell. I don't think our opponent can kill us unless they play something else. They just don't have a very high artifact count right now. Oops, the artifact count. Looks like that's the main thing they're doing. So we're probably dead next turn. We do have the potential to block with our Ink Moth. So that is something we can do. We're not going to bother fetching. That's so cruel, this Pendlehaven. Or is that actually might still be lethal. Yeah, I think it is. Because they actually can't block our Ink Moth. So we have lethal, I think. Go ahead and attack. We'll Mutagenic Growth, and that should be the win. No blocks, Mutagenic Growth, and that's the game. I don't know why I thought they were going to have their Ink Moth as a blocker, but I guess that was not an option for them. Alright, so now we'll actually get to sideboard against Affinity. So we bring in our Spell Skites, we bring in Twisted Image, we bring in Viridian Corruptor, we bring in Dissenter's Deliverance, we bring in our Nature's Claims, we cut our Dismembers, because our Artifact Destruction is generally better. Of course, Welding Jar makes Dismember sometimes better, but in general, I think I'd rather have these ones that don't hurt me in my deck. We cut Spell Pierce, we cut a Blossoming Defense. We might cut 2. We do cut a Glistener Elf and Dryad Arbor as well, as they're generally just liabilities. And then we cut 1 Become Immense. And then the rest of our deck should be pretty good to go. So now we'll actually have a true sideboarded game. It's not letting me submit. Okay, there we go. Just a little bit of lag. So we have we have 2 Blighted Agents and a Spell Skite. We have some pump spells. It's kind of a slow hand, but it is pretty reliable that we're going to get to kill our opponent on turn 4, which is generally pretty quick enough. Alright, opponent plays Ornithopter. And we can get lucky and draw our Twisted Image. Get to kill some things and draw some cards. Not yet. Alright, so we'll just get our Breeding Pool next turn. We'll be really safe. We'll drop our Spellskite, and then we'll drop our Blighted Agent, and then hopefully kill our opponent. And if we're lucky, our opponent can't represent fast enough of a clock. Although I don't think we have to be that lucky, because our opponent isn't exactly swinging in for that much. It's really cranial plating that will send it over the edge. Oh, I forgot to fetch. That was pretty bad. So we're gonna be at a 2-life disadvantage. So I hit F6 without thinking too much, which is something that happens. Gonna exile. Nothing we can do about that. We do eat a removal spell, which is nice. Hopefully next turn we can drop our Blight Agent and then win. If we lose by 2 life, I'm gonna be really, really sad. Opponent's not swinging for too much. We could. I wish we had more time to drop the Spellskite, but we don't. We're just going to have to hope this is enough. If we can draw another land, we have lethal. We've gone a few turns without drawing lands. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 3, 6, 10, 15. Did I miscount that badly? I guess I did. Well, or at least our fetch didn't end up mattering. That feels good-ish. I'm still happy with our setup. I think it's pretty good. We did make a small misplay there, although it didn't end up mattering. Our game plan might have just been a little too slow, but I still like it. I'm not sure if I would have kept it differently. Let's start with this new hand. This is really interesting. It is a 1-lander, but we do have a Noble. We have a Blight Agent, a Glistener Elf, and a very likely turn 3 kill. So I think I'm going to count on this Noble Hierarch. The Pendlehaven is a nice land to have too. We do want to draw our second land, but we could function with just using the Noble. If we don't draw a land, we drop the Glistener Elf. If we do draw a land, we drop the Blighted Agent. So we have a good plan either way. And we have enough damage to get a kill if we can just connect with 1 hit. We do not draw a land, so that means we do drop this Glistener Elf. We'll go ahead and use the Noble to pay for it. That way we can have the option to activate this Pendlehaven. Opponent plays an Overseer. So we can Distortion Strike might. If we draw another land, we do have lethal here. Do not draw a land. So I think what we do... make our opponent block. I think we just won't give our opponent that option though. I think we're just going to Distortion Strike this turn and try to kill them next turn. This lets us get in for 3, and the next turn we can just might, and that will be the kill. And this way we hold up protection on both turns. Alright, looks like he's just going on the offensive plan. And that is not going to be good enough against us. So we'll go ahead and cast Distortion Strike on our Glistener Elf. Play a land, main phase, Might of Old Crochet. Main phase, Might of Old Crochet. And swing in for 10 with protection. Or 11 rather. And we didn't even have to draw a land there, so that we ended up well, I mean, we didn't need the second land, so we basically did win the game on one land. So that shows the power of Noble Hierarch really put out the work with mana. Hands like that are riskier against decks with more removal, but since we know it's Affinity, we know they're probably not going to go out of their way to kill our Noble. We're generally going to be pretty good there. Alright, so here we have a Glistener Elf hand. This isn't too far from a turn 2 kill hand, which is always the dream, of course. But it is a one-lander, basically. Dried Arbor's a really slow land. It's not quite Noble Hierarch, like we did last game. So I think we actually do have to ship this. It's really close. If this Dried Arbor was a Noble, I probably would keep it. Or if I knew what we were up against. But in the blind, I don't like keeping a hand like this. That's a no-lander, so we do have to go to 5. This is a keepable 5. I'm not super hyped about it, but it is something. So we're going to put back probably the Spell Pierce because it is blind. And there are matchups where Spell Pierce is completely dead. We want Mutagenic Growth, we want Might. We don't really need Rancor when we have a Blight Agent Ink Moth hand. So we'll go ahead and put the Rancor back. Now my opponent's going to show me why I don't want to do those things. Faithless Looting. So this is mayhaps a Phoenix deck, Scalding Tarns. Dredge, okay. Let's go for Breeding Pool tapped. We're just going to try to play Blight Agent on 2 and kill our opponent on 3. And hopefully our opponent can't kill us before then or find removal. They don't run a ton of removal. So they dredge their Stinkweed, they play a Shriekhorn, drop their land, no Bloodghast. We're in pretty good shape here. So even if we wooded Foothills this turn and then draw a fetch, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's still not enough to play Become Immense. So we're just going to play our Ink Moth here, so that we have a backup threat if they do kill this Blighted Agent. And since we do have Mutagenic Growth, we're going to take it slow just in case they try to Conflagrate it. Going to make sure to be holding priority to save it. One, two, three, 4, 5. I guess if we did play a fetch and then drew a fetch, we could play Become Immense this turn. I actually made a mistake there. I think I should have played the fetch. Because now I'm going to play this fetch. That's 1, and then 2, 3, 4. Mutagenic Growth is what I wasn't counting, 5. So if we had played a fetch last turn, and if we draw a fetch this turn, that means we could have played Become Immense this turn. And that would have been a huge difference. But we did it. And we actually do have the Might will do it. We did make a slight misplay there in not playing our fetch. A very tiny thing that a lot of people might not think twice about, but I actually think it's probably a pretty huge deal. But we can just casually hit our opponent for lethal. Thanks to that draw. Opponent's going to concede. I used to run 3 pieces of Graveyard Hay. I went down to 2 because I feel like this matchup is already pretty okay, and I wanted to spend the sideboard slots on other things. But now here we are. We'll go ahead and cut a Dismember. And then the other question is if I cut this Rancor. No. Alright, so we just bring in the Ravenous Trap, we cut a Dismember, and a Become Immense, and we're good to go. I like keeping in at least one Dismember. It's a good way to get your creatures through sometimes. But yeah, we'll keep it simple. Sometimes I do bring in Spellskite in this matchup, depending on what kind of list they're running. But generally, we're just going to be going quick, trying to end the game. Opponent is going to be on the play, and they're going to be dredging it up. I'm glad I didn't keep that one-lander with the Glistener Elf. It would have been really bad against Dredge. Alright, it's not the best hand in the world, but we have an Infect creature, we have Pump and Protection for it, and a Noble to accelerate us. So I can't complain. Replacing one of these fetches for another Infect threat would be ideal. But aside from that, it's a pretty solid hand. So we're going to start by playing our Misty. We're going to fetch a Forest, and we're going to play our Noble. For me, the biggest part of learning to play Modern has just been when to fetch, what to fetch. It's actually a much more complicated question than I initially thought it was. I've been working on it a lot since. Opponent is going to play Cathartic Green, discard Life from the Loam. That's explosive, but it isn't insane. And he's not left with any dredgers, which is really good for us. Breeding Pool's not the best draw. So we'll just go ahead and play our Ink Moth and pass turn. Hold up our mana for interaction. No point in attacking your opponent's life total at this moment. It's quite hard to win that sort of game against Dredge. Opponent doesn't get to Dredge. We know they have a Loam and a Stinkweed Imp in their hand. They loam back a bunch of lands. Not super relevant. They're just mostly getting a Dredger back in the graveyard. And we might be able to go for the win here with protection. Well, no, not with protection. We could go for the win here. Opponent's only representing a red/green, so they could have Nature's Claim, which is a card they would bring in a matchup like this. So it does become a question of if to go for it or not. Our opponent isn't really threatening us, so I don't think we have to go for it. So I think we're just going to be content with getting them for 5 and not bother trying to kill them. Because we don't need to kill them this turn. And I think we just have the luxury of waiting. And opponent is going to try to Lava Axe. So we can't pump in response. That's not going to save it, so we'll just have to go ahead and use our Vines. And we'll go ahead and fetch out a... yeah, we have a Breeding Pool on hand. We'll just fetch out a Forest. Protect our Ink Moth. Get in for 5. Opponent did have interaction. They did choose the wrong time to do it. If we had a Blossoming Defense there, that would have hit them for more. And if we had a Blossoming Defense and a Mutagenic Growth, they would have just killed themselves there. So they did pick a pretty poor time to interact, in my opinion. They have a Conflagrate, but it can't hit our Ink Moth Nexus. And we do have lethal, with or without our Noble. We can't protect though, so our opponent could have more interaction. But at this point, their hand is Stinkweed Imp, 2 lands. I guess they could have, potentially. They could have more. One, 2, no Dredger for 3. Opponent's not getting the best. They do have a bunch of Ancient Grudges. That makes me really glad to not be using Grafdigger's Cage anymore. It is a good way to kill Inkmoth Nexus. So if we don't draw any protection, we might just play Blighted Agent. Dismember something. So we'll play our Blighted Agent. I'm not going to bother with our Inkmoth when our opponent has so much interaction. So we'll just play this tapped. Opponent has a conflict rate, but we could potentially save it with this Might of Volcrosia. So I think we're just gonna have to hope for the best. Hope our opponent doesn't commit more than 1 damage to this Blighted Agent if he does go for the conflict rate. We could always try to block with this Inkmoth too. Depending on how much mana our opponent has left when they try to kill us. We have Dismember, but it is going to hurt us more than it's going to help us at this point. We need to draw another pump spell too if our opponent does go for the conflict rate. So let's think. Opponent could cast Life from the Loam, pick up 3 lands, puts them up 2 cards, puts them to 8. Then they can conflict rate me for 8. Eight plus 4 is dead. So I think that means we do need to animate my Inkmoth. Otherwise I'm literally dead. This at least opens up a pathway to victory. Because now they can Ancient Grudge, but now they don't have enough mana to Loam and conflict rate. And kill me, I think. Because they have to play one of their lands, so that puts them 1 damage short of lethal. They can kill my Blighted Agent now, but we'll see what path they take. I think they do have a path here that wins the game for sure, but they might not necessarily pick it out. Because they could, at this point, they could just Loam conflict rate not for lethal, but also kill my Blighted Agent. Cathartic Reunion. Okay. So I guess they are going for the kill. They're hoping to hit Creeping Chills. They did not get it. They can still kill my Blighted Agent, unfortunately. Which I do think means that spells my death. Sorry about that. It's my cat. Okay, he does commit more than enough damage to kill my Blighted Agent. And we do not have enough to pull back from here, so he does get the win. Interesting match as always, interesting. Dismember would have been more useful there if he didn't have so many dang Ancient Grudges. Because we could have used it to clear out the... We could have used it to clear out the Narcomoeba and get in with our Inkmoth. But he just kind of had a good combination of cards there. I'm still happy with our current plan. I think actually I'm going to go ahead. Well, never mind. Alright, this time we're going to be able to play, which will be really good. We don't have an evasive creature, but we have a Spell Pierce and a Noble, which is really good. So we're definitely gonna roll with this. Start by running out our noble. Next turn we'll drop a noble glistener elf, hold up spell pierce. It would be nice to hold up mana to pierce his Faithless Looting, but we don't have time for that sort of thing. So we're gonna go Noble, Elf, Spell Pierce. It would be nice if I could play my Inkmoth, but we really need this colored mana to make sure we can hold up the Spell Pierce because it's our only protection at the moment. Doesn't hit any creatures, which is good. It has Conflict Rate, but we can Spell Pierce it. So we're looking pretty good. Let's hold that up. Play our Inkmoth. And get in for 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Not quite lethal. So we'll just get in for the swing. 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Yeah. I always like to double, triple check because I'd ever want to feel just like an idiot and miss super obvious lethals. Is he really gonna try to fight me here? I guess he is. I think this is an instance where I guess since we're in combat, we Blossoming Defense. It's an interesting choice to Spell Pierce here, maybe. But I think Spell Pierce is going to continue to be relevant because he can't really play around it. Ooh, but he is going to double. We'll use it here. Double Lightning X. Very interesting. Well, you should never fight Infect in combat. This Dredge player hasn't learned that yet, unfortunately for him. But yeah, that's gonna definitely cost him the game next turn. He probably could have bought himself another turn or two to draw out the game a bit, but instead he got a little too feisty. Well, hitting the Narcomoeba will save him. Yeah, hitting the Narcomoeba is going to save him a turn because we can't get through it. Do we want to save anybody here? So if we save the Glistener Elf, well... No, I don't think we can save anyone here. We're just on the Inkmoth plane now. Swing in. Probably chumps with the Narcomoeba. Play Glistener Elf. And if he doesn't hit another flyer, we might just be able to win with this Inkmoth Nexus. We're looking like we're in pretty good shape. He didn't hit his Artifact Destruction. Blight Agent is pretty nice too. I think we just have to go for it at this point. And if our opponent interacts now and has like a third lightning axe, then at least we can float the mana and play our Blighted Agent. But he doesn't, and we win. Alright, here we go into game 5. We won the roll, so we get to be on the play. And we'll keep this very solid hand. We have 2 Infect creatures, a Noble, Pump, and Protection. There's not much more you can ask for. Start by grabbing a Forest and playing our Noble. Next turn we'll probably just drop our Inkmoth and our Glistener Elf. Opponent plays Caves of Coleus, so probably some form of Death and Taxes. He also has Draw, Step, Stops. Interesting, interesting. So we'll go ahead, play Inkmoth, play Glistener Elf, and see if we can set up a win next turn. We do have 10 points if we can get a creature through. Well, we have 10 points if we can get our Glistener Elf through. Specifically, that distinction does make a difference. Opponent is thinking over their options. They might be considering pathing at this turn. That's why they're taking so long. Or maybe they're just AFK. Alright, opponent passes priority. And we're just going to pass turn, hold up our protection spells. There is an argument to play Windswept Heath first instead of Inkmoth, to both potentially fill Become Immense and hold up more interaction. We'll go ahead and fire off this Blossoming Defense. There also is an argument to let Inkin path it, so that we can just pull out another forest and go on our Inkmoth plan. But if he has like a Ghost Quarter or something, that gets messy really fast. Alright, so he is going to get the path through, so we're solidly on the Inkmoth plan. Go ahead and pull out our other forest. So we could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 damage this turn. Not lethal. We could potentially get a kill next turn. So we'll swing in with this. We'll hold up our mana to protect our Inkmoth, which we can protect at least one time. Opponent plays a Thalia. I don't think Thalia stops us. Maybe it does. Go ahead, fetch out our breeding pool. I think Pendlehaven might make this work. 3, 4, yeah. So we just kick a Vines, and then we just have to pay both mana and a life for this mutagenic growth. And then with the Exalted trigger, that makes it lethal. That worked really well. So the only changes I think we make is we take out the Spell Pierce and maybe the Apostle's Blessing. It's a lot less useful in this matchup compared to others. And then maybe we just bring in a couple Spell Skites. Artifact Destruction is a maybe. I think for now we'll just play the Spell Skites and see how it folds out. I'm not 100% sure what version of the deck they're on. I've seen this deck built quite a few ways. It's not exactly like a super popular deck to play right now, so I haven't played against it enough to really have a good solid sideboard strategy. But I'm familiar enough with the deck that I think just a couple Spell Skites can go a long way. So this hand has a Noble, which is really good in this matchup. It has one land, which is a little sketchy, and it has a Spell Skite, Glistener Elf, Distortion Strike. It's honestly pretty good, and we are on the draw. I think this is going to be okay. We can fetch out a breeding pool, play our Noble. Mutagenic is a pretty solid draw. Go ahead, grab our breeding pool. And noble, which is really nice in this matchup. And since their primary removals also give us lands, the noble becomes a lot better. Thalia is out. We'll go ahead and play our Spellskite for protection. Then next turn we'll run out Glistener Elf. Hopefully within the next 2 turns draw a land, and then we just win off of our Glistener Elf. If they play a Thought Knot here and take our Glistener Elf, that will slow us down considerably, but we can always dismember it and draw a card. Opponent's going to kill our Spellskite, which is fine. That is what his job was. Now we play our Glistener Elf. If we can draw a land, we can potentially get a kill next turn. We do need to draw a land. On to Pontiff, enters the battlefield or dies, give creatures -1/-1. That is pretty brutal. I think we have to save. We'd save one of our creatures. I mean, we're gonna save one. I think we actually have to save. If we draw a land, we can Distortion Strike and then potentially become immense. If we save the noble, we have to draw another infect creature. I think our plan is better to save the Glistener Elf. Lose the noble. Because all we really have to do is draw a land, play Distortion Strike, and then on the next turn play Become Immense. Which isn't super unrealistic. If our opponent interacts anymore, we're in trouble. Yeah. Until then, we just pass. We really need to draw a land next turn. Ghost Quarter is a little rough. But we don't actually... It's not the end of the world, because we're just trying to draw another land, most of which are fetch lands. If he plays... That makes things a lot harder. Alright, so we basically have one turn to draw a good creature. Or a blue land. That is a good creature. We are not technically out yet. And now we are out. Alright, Fatal Push and Path. That makes me want to bring in Shaper Sanctuary potentially. Seems like a potentially good card in the matchup. As for what we cut, the Spellskite isn't amazing, but it is something. It's like decent. The Become Immenses might not be great to where we can cut one. Then maybe we can just bring in the Shaper Sanctuaries. It's a nice source of card advantage. They are targeting our creatures quite a lot. Let's give this a try. We'll take the play. It's an interesting hand. We can turn 1 Dryad Arbor, turn 2 play Inkmoth, play Noble, turn 3 potentially win. Really bad if they have a Ghost Quarter or something. I think we have to go ahead and mulligan. This hand has Shapers to infect creatures and dismember, which is pretty good, so I think we can go ahead and do it. The card to put back is tricky. I think we can put a Glistener Elf back, because we're going to get to play the Shaper Sanctuary first. And all we really need to do is draw another land. And we're looking good. Hopefully this Sanctuary can give us the card advantage we need to keep this show on the road. Go ahead and run this out. If they path us, at least it puts us up a land and a card. If they push, it's a little worse, but again, we do get to replace this. So it's not the end of the world. And when we draw a creature, it's gonna be able to do a lot of damage. We can handle the Leonin Arbiter with this Dismember. It's unfortunate losing our colored mana, but it's not the end of the world. If anything, this just fueling our Become Immense. Does put our opponent down a land too, which is nice. Thalia is good. They probably should have done Thalia before they did the Leonin Arbiter. They could have really locked us out of the game. But at this point, we're just looking to draw a creature. Alright, and that looks like we're going to be losing. There's a good argument that we maybe should have mulliganed there at the end. But overall, I think we had a pretty good run. 4-1 is a pretty solid record. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.